2 games, 2 wins, and still not conceded. Happy days, ladies and germs. I've got to start by giving Burnley some credit, though. I said in my preview before the game I expected them to capitulate if we scored early, yet they didn't half give us a fight at Anfield this weekend. A little too much of a fight, if you ask Jurgen.
But we have to stick to protecting the players. We cannot deny that completely and say, well, that's a challenge. I love watching that. Then watch wrestling.
Good grief, he's naked!
I'm obviously buzzing we've maintained a perfect start, but I'm also a little peed off we didn't get a third goal. Not only did we deserve it, and I think it would have proved the catalyst for Burnley's heads to drop like I did predict they would after watching them against Brighton, but it's not done our battle with Man City for goal difference any favours when they ran out 5-1 winners in their game. I mean, by the time I got to Kirkdale Station after the match, Man City had already equalled our result, and like us, they'd also had a goal disallowed too. I mean, we're still ahead of them on points, we're still ahead of them on goal difference, and we're equal to them on goals scored, so it really is first world problems here.
Worry too much.
But like I said in my preview, this should have been a game where we had an opportunity to go for a high-scoring victory and bolster our goal difference. I know Burnley actually gave a very spirited performance, and I'll come back onto them in a minute, but I'm still certain a third goal would have put them to bed and allowed us the opportunity to bag more goals. But I'm not going to complain too much about a perfect start being maintained. It's only a small thing.
So stop fucking moaning.
Now, it's only fair to give credit to the reason we didn't get a higher scoreline. Burnley deserve complete respect for their spirit. They gave us everything they had. You could tell they weren't a very good team. I mean, their football was bang average, but they absolutely cannot be knocked for effort. They seemed to feed off our atmosphere just as much as our lads did. They didn't stop running. They closed down everyone and everything and just simply did not give up until the end. And it was clear from the get-go that they were going to use their one advantage over us, and that was their physicality.
I must break you.
It's only when we come up against teams like Burnley do I appreciate how small some of our players actually are. I mean, I consider Burnley the same as I consider the likes of, your Stokes and West Ham are another one I can think of off the top of my head. Proper traditional meat and potatoes English sides whose DNA as a club is ingrained with valuing physical toughness in their teams. It's why Stoke in particular were infamous back in the day for being the bogey team to Arsene Wenger's post-Invincibles weakling teams who everyone bullied. Because they play really physical and their fans love the old school English approach of getting at the other team and beating them physically. There's no mistaking Virgil van Dijk, of course, but Burnley seem to have like 3 or 4 lads his size, and the rest just made up for their size with sheer aggression and effort. And there's no denying the game was physical because of this. Klopp said after the game he felt Burnley were over-aggressive and he wants players to be protected more.
You saw these challenges with Barnes and Wood and Virgil and Joel. It's like, I think all started with when we changed the rules like 20 years ago to protect the players. But we have to stick to protecting the players. We cannot deny that completely and say, well, that's a challenge. I love watching that. Then watch wrestling. I'm
going to play devil's advocate here and say I'm 50-50 on that. I personally don't have a problem with teams adopting a physical approach. The game's supposed to be played by men at the end of the day, and as much as we all love Jurgen and want to be on his side, you can't say a professional footballer or manager will find any sympathy in the cop when they're complaining about getting tackled too hard. Because, look, we've all played Sunday League, and every dad with an 11-year-old son out there watching knows exactly what they'd say if their son was complaining in this way.
When you're in football training, this is how we train for football. Daddy drives and you run. Get your little ass in shape.
Believe it or not, thankfully, I couldn't find a video of a British dad being this over-the-top and unreasonable, so good job there, dads. But no self-respecting man should accept being knocked over by another man of similar stature. You get back up and you give as good as you get, at least. Now, where I agree with Klopp, though, is that, yes, there should be a line. I remember playing a 7-a-side game with me mates once against a bunch of lads I didn't know. It's one of them things that you sign up to, sign up to a local tournament type things. And one lad in particular, I'll never forget him, in this one game was just acting like he was playing rugby or something. Going into 50-50s at every normal bit of play with every pound of his body committed to knocking the other lad completely over on his ass. He was putting way too much into it, and it got to the point where he seemed angry and the rest of us were all just like... In the end, he tried to do it to me, but it was me who actually had the brainwave for this, believe it or not. He tried to do it to me for a second time, and I simply stopped running at the last second when he committed and just let the prat fly headfirst into the nearby wall, allowing me all the time in the world to just walk on and score. I said to my mates who, unlike me, who were intent on taking him on, I just said to them, look, I'm not interested in who's heavier. I'm interested in winning the game. But when he did it to me a second time on his 3rd attempt, from behind, by the way, so I couldn't see him this time, the ref gave a foul, but my mate ended up picking the ball up and saying, if he carries on, we'll either knock him out or walk off. We were just there to play football at the end of the day. Thankfully, the ref diffused the situation and he had a word with the lad and it all calmed down, and I can't remember anything about the game after that. I don't know about you guys, by the way, but have you ever noticed that with open age football?
And there's always an Uncle Knobhead. There's always an Uncle Knobhead.
There is though, isn't there? There's always one knobhead in every open age football team that either takes it too seriously or seems more intent on having a fight rather than playing football. Anyway, back to Burnley. So I do agree there is a line, but what I saw Burnley doing wasn't what I'd call over the line. In fact, I remember Trent putting one of their lads on his ass with a strong shoulder provides too. So it wasn't all Burnley. What I saw was a solid meat and potatoes English side try and stand up to a better footballing side with the only advantage they had. But unfortunately for them, we're not Arsenal. We're fucking Liverpool. We don't cave in if you come at us physically. We stand our ground and give it fucking back. We might have decades of European football experience and success ingrained into our DNA as a football club now, but we're still English in our core. We conquered England before we conquered Europe. And if you want to play against us the English way, we'll fucking beat you the English way. I personally enjoyed the game, and I felt Jurgen's comments were more from the perspective of trying to protect his players from injury or for future games, because as much as he might have complained, I didn't see a single one of his players bottle it. But having said that, as I've explained, we all agree there needs to be a line. So maybe his opinions on where that line is probably differ slightly from mine a little, but in the end, he should be proud of the lads for standing up to the physical challenge and overcoming it.
That's right.
So how did we win the game? Well, Jota and Manny were the goal scorers. Jota slotting home with a neat little header from an inch-perfect pass by Tsimikas early in the first half. Tsimikas was also much more improved from his performance against Norwich. He wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination. He still gave the ball away once or twice. And one thing I picked up from, by the way, from where I was sitting, I remember Hendo and Van Dijk absolutely screaming at him, holding their fingers to their ears, clearly telling him to listen. Now, I've seen that happen a couple of times now. One thing that went viral after the Norwich game was Milner giving him a slap. I don't know if you all saw that. But in that video, there's a clip of Milner holding his fingers to his ears too. I don't know if that's related to the footage and was just a random still image of him showing frustration at a teammate, but it's the first thing that came to mind when I saw Hendo and Van Dijk do the same thing. Maybe Tsimikas is having problems with his communication, maybe his English is still poor, or he's just not paying attention, but also it might just be a coincidence, I don't know. But unlike the Norwich game, he made some inspired contributions, not just the inch-perfect assist for Jota's goal, but there was an incident in the second half when he lost possession and got put on his ass by a Burnley player. Other Burnley players then surrounded him to try and pass the ball around him and create an attack, but he got up and outnumbered and outgunned, fought tooth and nail to get that ball back and eventually forced the ball out for a throw-in, showing an outstanding bit of bravery and determination. Again, this is what I said about Liverpool rising to the occasion of a physical battle. He showed some real heart and character to do what he did in that moment, and the Kop and main stand in particular, which is the corner of the pitch where it happened, gave him an absolute roar of appreciation for his efforts. So much so that when he got substituted later, he got a standing ovation. I hope that boosts his confidence, like I really do. I mean, I might have been pissed off at him for the Norwich game, but I don't want any Liverpool player to fail. I want them to succeed, and while he wasn't perfect in this game, he still has a lot to work on. Compared to Norwich, he looked like a lot more clever than he did then.
Well, he can't be any dumber than he looks.
The second goal came in the second half, and honestly, Manny found his way through a couple of times, and you could tell at some point it was going to pay off. After a neat little bit of build-up play starting from the back, when Van Dijk, whose passing, long balls and overall distribution in this game was absolutely amazing, by the way, he created an attack out of nowhere by playing it long to the only player forward with a bit of space in Harvey Elliott, who I'm going to come back onto in a minute because, by God, that boy. Anyway, he controls it beautifully and passes it to Salah, who finds space as soon as the Burnley players reshuffle themselves, and Salah dinks it through first time, but in the air rather than along the floor, but Manny automatically repositions himself perfectly so that the otherwise awkward bounce instead sets up nicely for a first time volley, which Mane duly obliges and drives home for Liverpool's second. Overall, Manny impressed me for effort, but he let himself down in front of goal, something which Klopp picked up on in his post-match interview.
We could have scored, Sadio could have scored one or two more.
He got through a couple of times and normally would have buried some of those chances any other day. He deserved to get on the score sheet because of how well he did, but I think he's the reason we only won 2-0 and not 3-0. He really should have scored 2 or more, but I can't say he had a bad game because he 100% played well. But that's why I think his performance deserved more than one goal, and why, he only has himself to blame for that, for wasting the other chances he got. The most notable performances for me, though, were Van Dijk's, Jota's and Harvey Elliott's. Van Dijk was surprisingly brilliant on the ball today, as well as needing to bring his A-game in the air defensively because of the sheer size of some of the Burnley players.
5'9", I didn't know they stacked shit that high. You trying to squeeze an inch in on me somewhere, huh?
But his transitioning of play from front to back honestly felt like we had Xabi Alonso back in the team at some point. He was playing it perfectly from one end of the pitch to the other, straight into a forward player's control. The most notable example of this was obviously the second goal, as I mentioned, when he played it straight to Harvey Elliott to control from 30 yards away. But that was by no means the only time he did it. And speaking of Harvey Elliott, I mean, what a game that kid had. I'm going to leave this more for my transfer window review video when the window actually closes, but I suspect Harvey Elliott is Klopp's preferred solution to replacing Gini Wijnaldum, and given this performance against Burnley, I don't think anyone's going to argue much. The kid is fucking amazing. 18 years old, he's only like 5'1" or whatever, but he has the confidence of a player in his prime. The second I saw this kid play for the first time, I was as convinced he'd make it as I was when I remember seeing Raheem Sterling for the first time. But unlike Sterling, Harvey Elliott seems like he has more to his game than just one attribute. I remember when I saw Sterling play for the first time, I remember thinking thinking, okay, this lad has devastating pace and he knows how to use it, but that's all he has. If he can work on his game more, he'll be world class. However, I don't think that's really happened. Sterling hasn't really improved other parts of his game at all. His game is completely centered only around his pace. Take that away from him and he has nothing, which is why he's undoubtedly good, but he'll never be in the same league as some of the world's best forwards and wingers. Harvey Elliott, though, has skill, confidence, arrogance, fearlessness, aggression, speed. I mean, this kid just needs more experience and a platform and that one big goal, and he's off. He's on his way to being a star.
Forget about it.
If Klopp's serious about stepping him up rather than turning to the transfer market to replace Gini, I think we're going to see a star in the making these next couple of years, mark my words. And finally, Jota, well, what can you say? 2 games, 2 goals. Again, I've said it before and I'll say it again, a lot of Liverpool fans have been concerned about our inactivity in the transfer market, and I'll confess, I've been one of them.
The boy has no patience.
But maybe, just maybe, we have our solution right here. If we keep Jota fit and he keeps doing what he's been doing since he's joined, who needs a new £100 million forward, really? I do like this lad. He's not the best player in the world. He's not like Mbappe or Messi or whatever, but he's got that killer instinct in front of goal. He's not necessarily the best footballer, but he just keeps scoring. He's got that clinical ruthlessness which top strikers have. The best forwards and players combine that with skill, but Jota, to me, even though he's more of a winger, he's also a natural poacher. What he lacks for in skill, he makes up for in positioning and finishing. Kind of like Robbie Fowler, although Robbie Fowler, to be fair, did prove he had some skill. His skill was a mild strength, but it wasn't his main strength. His main strength was his positioning and his finishing. And obviously, he was way more clinical than Jota is.
Obviously.
But Jota's strengths remind me of Fowler's strengths a little, which is the point I'm trying to make. And speaking of Fowler, by the way, I don't know if anyone's seen it yet, but our God has a YouTube channel, believe it or not, which is criminally undersubscribed. I'll leave a link to it below if you want to check it out for yourselves. But basically, he's been doing a podcast series, and his guests so far have included the cream of Liverpool and footballing legends. Dalglish, Gerrard, Souness, Rush, even Jurgen Klopp himself has been on, and a few other surprise additions such as Paul Scholes to compare what it was like on the other side of the rivalry and all. He's only got like 18,000 subscribers, and honestly, his content is genuinely interesting and worth watching. So if you're not already, get over there and subscribe. I mean, if you're a self-respecting red, it is
a mandatory requirement.
Anyway, that's enough of me waffling on. If you like the channel, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm a new channel at this point, so any and all interactions are very much appreciated. If you're already subscribed, thanks again. You don't understand how much this means to me, and I do hope you're enjoying the content. You might have noticed early in the video, by the way, I included a clip of Mighty Red Productions videos. I do genuinely enjoy his videos, and I had to include one in my own eventually. I highly recommend you all subscribe to his channel for the occasional giggle, because they are worth the watch. I might do that in the future, by the way. If any of you guys want to make a video for fun and send me a link, I'm happy to include them in my videos. I mean, football's got endless subject matter to be taken the piss out of, and I'm sure you guys can have a laugh putting your creative side to the test, ripping on it in a visual way, and I'll be happy to share it for the world, see if you do come up with something funny enough. But for now, I hope you enjoyed the game, and as always, I'll be interested to know what you thought of the game and how the season's going so far, and how the players are doing, who's doing well, who needs dropping, who needs including. I mean, I'm sure a few people's feathers were ruffled over the fact Bobby didn't really get much game time this week. But for now, enjoy your week until it's time to go again against Chelsea. Take care, lads and lasses. Ta-ra.